You're watching highlights of the Nordonia Hills City School District Board of Education meeting on July 21, 2026. Follow your local governments at cgov.org.
The district's treasurer walked through how new laws, levies, and even an MGM settlement were reshaping the school system's finances. If you've wondered what all those percentages and forecasts actually mean for the community, you'll want to hear this.
You guys are very lucky because you'll hear from me now and next month when we give the first financial forecast in August. So remember House Bill 96, switching it to February and August. Not thrilled about it, but law is law. I do think May and November was better suited for schools, but I digress. We will have a full confidence forecast next month in August. Our fiscal year actual revenue compared to date for 25. Property state real estate tax, we started collecting on the 5 mil levy for May of 25, and every time I talk, I want to thank the community for their support. We talk about it daily in the office. So that was a change about 9% as well. And then we get to our restricted and unrestricted state aid. So it's a 12% increase and then a 16% decrease. The 16% decrease was on the science of reading stipend from fiscal year 25. So that stipend did not, when we knew this, we budgeted for it, but that's why you see the discrepancy. Property tax allocation, your homestead or rollback for our wonderful community members that qualify, about a 2.5% increase, which aligns to when you pass a new levy. And other revenue, minus 29%. Whoa, that's a lot. Nope, we've talked about this a lot for this year. That $2 million decrease is the MGM settlement. That's year 5 was $2.4 million. Year 6, the last payment was $465,000. So roughly, revenues are up about 4.3% from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26.
After laying out their revenue shifts, Treasurer Kiffer turned to what kept the district out of fiscal oversight while still cutting costs and honoring contracts. This was where they connected the numbers back to the district's performance and gave credit to everyone involved.
Our big items were about stagnant, and then our non-operational, some of those fees for the county, memberships, collections from the county for that to provide our property tax collections was down about 11%. And then our non-operational, these are our transfers, which we already knew. Our transfer from last year was $1.6 million. This year's was $1.2 million, which was budgeted and talked about before. So again, I can't stress enough that you don't see a lot, in my opinion, you don't see a lot of school districts that are not in fiscal oversight. Remember, we wanted to avoid that. You don't see a lot of school districts that are performing the way we are with our awesome kiddos, decreasing expenses while continuing our contractual agreements with all stakeholders. So that is a kudos to everybody from last year to what we just concluded for this year.
After walking through the numbers, Treasurer Kiffer stepped back to explain what those stronger cash balances actually said about the district's long-term strategy. This was where the board's quiet financial decisions over the past few years came into focus.
So revenues, 2.5% high, $2.5 million higher. We knew that from last year because of what I've already mentioned. Total expenditures are actually lower by $772, and so our cash on hand is higher than the previous year. We know that. Again, 1.29%. Over the past several years, the district has implemented a disciplined financial strategy focused on reducing staffing through attrition, restructuring positions, streamlining operations, carefully managing contracted services, and controlling departmental expenditures. These sustained efforts allow the district to reduce overall expenditures while continuing to provide a high-quality educational opportunities and services for our students. The fiscal 26 results reflect the success of the Board of Education's and Administration's long-term commitment to improving the district's financial sustainability.
The district's latest forecast didn't just come close to reality, it landed almost right on the nose. Treasurer Kiffer broke down what that kind of accuracy meant for cash on hand and gave a shout out to the people who made it possible.
So our year-to-date revenues compared to our forecast, remember our forecast was in February, was $314,000 higher. Our year-to-date expenses from forecast to actuals was 582,000 favorable, so negative that. So a net impact towards a cash balance of $896,000. So in terms of percentage, revenues were above forecast by 0.5%. Expenses were below forecast by basically 1%. And then total accuracy, which you combine expenses and revenues, is a variance of 0.22%. So I'm very happy of where we landed from forecast to actuals. It's again a kudos to the staff, the directors, and the principals, and we talk about it daily. They're probably sick of hearing the word forecast from me, but that's my job. And then we've said that before, so we do have a higher cash balance because of that, because this is the first year of collection, which helps us, again, sustain for the future.
After the big picture on finances, Treasurer Kiffer circled back to the behind-the-scenes work on enrollment, facilities, and public reporting. This was where the long-range planning and new community finance meetings really started to take shape.
But progress updates. Last year, we basically completed 2 enrollment studies. Enrollment studies by Todd Casey and myself, contracting with the ESE for a small part, but going through data, and that all the Nordonia dark green, you can see is a link. I'm not going to go to that link, but that's a link to where it is either somewhere on the website. So we have our enrollment trends and facility alignment, which corresponded in March to the rollout of the master plan. And then we passed the resolution a couple months ago, and then OFCC did their own enrollment projections, not talking to us by design. And honestly, the enrollment trends that we did, and then OFCC did, which did not cost anything, that's important to know, we're basically aligned. We're very aligned, and we're going to continue monitoring that. I know it's completed, but we're going to monitor that enrollment trend going forward. We published an updated popular annual financial report. It's 7 pages. It's much more visually appealing than the other 3 years. I'm going to continue that for fiscal 26 and going forward. Conducted quarterly fact meetings. The finance meetings are much more structured now as in the past. That's from last year's board voting on the structure. And so at a minimum, I'll have 4 quarterly fact meetings: August, October, February, and May. And the August and February will align and will be my first time that I stress test the forecast to the FAC committee. And then presenting the Board of Education the forecast. So that's the progress update for year 1.
After walking through the district's numbers, Treasurer Kiffer pivoted to a new idea: quick online finance videos for the community. This was where they started rethinking how everyday residents could actually understand what's behind the budget.
And then I do want to harp on this a little bit, which is going to be hopefully one of my goals for this year, is an online financial education, like short finance topic videos. We know everybody's attention span is, what, a minute maybe? Maybe even Mr. Tidmore is even shorter, but I plan to create some sort of financial topics that kind of just make it a little bit easier and digestible for not the board and mainly the community and people that just don't want to dive into the details a little bit. Just informing the community as much as I can.
To wrap up the forecast, Treasurer Kiffer pointed to the next big challenge: finding new revenue streams and setting a formal cash balance policy that would signal when it's time for the board to act. This was where the long-term sustainability plan started to turn into concrete next steps.
Action steps, meaning we haven't really started, is to explore more diverse revenue sources. We have gone into grants, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But then another action step is develop a board-approved cash balance policy. I can explain that in a little bit in the future. But a cash balance policy is basically, hey, this is the past, what we've done. What does it look like in the future? Again, long-term sustainability, and it's almost like a trigger of when the board starts talking about revenues or expenses.
When it came to cutting costs without cutting programs, Treasurer Kiffer pointed to some quiet moves with grants, tech funding, and a laptop lease that added up behind the scenes. This was where the small dollar decisions started to show a bigger impact on the district's budget.
So our progress update for that is utilizing grant funding to offset general fund expenses. I've worked with Mr. Russ for Fund 451, which is through IT. A lot of these aren't that big in the terms of the dollar amounts, but I know that Mr. Stewart applies to every grant that he sees and talks to us, small, medium, large, all of them. And then also we completed our E-rate technology project at the start of last fiscal year. And then we continue a career tech education partnership with CVCC. That's offsetting about $30,000 in costs. And then from last month, we exercised the purchase option for the 23-26 Chromebook lease. Am I right on that? Laptops, sorry. Laptop lease, not Chromebooks. But we did change our you'll find out in the other objectives for the Chromebook side. My apologies, Mr. Russ. So next steps.
Before the board ever took a vote, Treasurer Kiffer laid out how a new cash balance policy could reshape the district's long-term financial stability. This was a peek into the slow, deliberate process behind deciding how much money the district really needs to keep in reserve.
So it establishes a board-adopted framework for maintaining the district's long-term financial stability and ensures adequate reserves, whatever that looks like for our peer districts or however we want to set that. This will probably be 4 or 5 FAC committee meetings on that. So I don't expect it maybe at the end of next year to vote on something, but we're going to take our time on that to make sure it just makes sense for us.
After talking big picture strategy, Treasurer Kiffer dug into the quieter side of cost savings, contracts, facilities planning, and how money might be reshuffled behind the scenes. This was where future town halls and a different way of organizing capital funds started to come into view.
Now we're going to continue analyzing existing contracts to identify potential cost savings. For example, we are converting a purchase service contract of a district team member. We're going to transform them to our payroll and saving the fees associated with that vendor. Our objective 3, facilities planning and continuous improvement. Action steps: create a budget that aligns with capital and maintenance priorities, and host some town halls or whatever we call them, or community surveys to gather feedback and facility planning. A lot of that has already been done through Todd's office. We'll obviously evaluate future capital needs, which are best funded through the general fund, or continue what we've been doing, and then make periodic transfers from the general fund to the permanent improvement fund. Are we still spending the same money? Yes. Are we organizing it in a different way that's in the PI fund? As a fund accountant, I've said that before, the answer is yes. So that's the route that I'm seeing. I will keep the board informed for that.
As the forecast turned into real-world budgeting, Treasurer Kiffer explained how per-student allocations and an earlier budget calendar changed conversations with principals and directors. Listen in on how that shift played out behind the scenes.
And then we're going to continue implementing the facility master plan. Objective 4, which we've already started, allocate budget amounts per student to building leaders. And then foster a working budget with directors to identify areas for approved allocation, which I'll get to that. So our progress update: we've completed collaborative fiscal 27 budgets with all directors and principals during January and February of last year. I made the decision, due to House Bill 96, to move up our budgeting process to January and February instead of April and May. I thought it just made sense to then align with the February forecast, but it was not it was a seamless move, but there was hard conversations to start budgeting for next fiscal year in January and February, but I'm very appreciative towards the directors and principals to sit down, understand where we're coming from, understand the law and the forecast and how it should align. And it was great. There were great conversations, and it's good to have that budget set in February, March, and then evaluate if anything big comes up, and then communicate with the board before the year end.
When the district got fewer students and therefore less funding, Treasurer Kiffer described how they used this transition year to rethink both school budgets and big technology purchases. Here how they tried to smooth out the process now so future years don't feel like a scramble.
So if you have less kiddos, you get less money. This is definitely a transition year. We started, but it'll be more fine-tuned for next budget. But I'm very happy for the progress that we made. And a part of that is going to be analyzing any peer districts or districts close to us, like what do they do too? Can our process be more streamlined? And I think it can. And then foster a working budget, identified areas for improved allocation. We shifted that purchase to May and June, really April, May, and June, to allow our IT department to have time to one, make sure that the shipment's correct, one, turn on all the buttons and make sure it works, install all the whatever they have to install. But it is a large process, and I'm glad we were able to talk and get a couple more months for IT purchases. And we've already talked about utilizing grant funding. Our next steps is kind of like create a forecast for technology purchases. I know Mike has documents that we just need to basically bring together, and I would include in a future forecast. And then regular process reporting. Mike has a committee to the board and the community.
After all the numbers were laid out, a board member stepped in with some pointed praise, and Treasurer Kiffer revealed a new 10-year staffing study headed into the audit. Stay for this exchange to see how they dug into what those reductions really meant behind the scenes.
No, but I do have to tell you, I am very impressed with the reduction in expenditures from 25 to 26. I think that really shows high levels, shows how deep the work has been and how hard the work has been over these last couple of years. So kudos.
And as we prepare for the fiscal 26 audit, Dr. Miller brought something up a few months ago, which we're completing now, is that an FTE study that's going to compare for the last 10 years. Mr. Wright and I were looking at it today, making sure the data is good. And so that's been really ongoing for 3 months, and that will be completed soon. So it'll be included in the audit report, but it's also we'll be able to report the FTEs out to the community, because in the prior audit, it really wasn't FTE, it was more like accounting, lingo, function expenses, which looked so much larger, because you would have maybe a 2-hour person or 4-hour person reported as one. So we needed to digest that to a comparison for full-time equivalencies 1.0, like a 1.0 person. What does that look like year after year? We're almost done.
A new state law had just changed the rules for how schools handled math intervention, and it came without any extra funding. Listen in as a speaker questioned what that mandate really meant for public schools and for fairness between districts.
Senate Bill 19 was signed into law by Governor DeWine. This bill mandates remediation and intervention for students struggling in math. It also mandates a review of math curriculums. It's important to note that this is an unfunded mandate and only intended for public schools. Remediation and intervention, and we talk about intervention models all the time and how incredibly important they are, and they are incredibly important, but we also need to look at how fairly things are pushed down from the state level.
Before the board signed off on routine policy updates, a speaker flagged 2 quiet changes that could reshape how the district tackles absenteeism and pays families in lieu of busing. Hear how these tweaks aim to get struggling students help sooner and bring new state dollars back into the budget.
It's just an updated policy on student absenteeism. And really what the state did is it really modeled on how to decrease absenteeism by committees and working with individual families that are struggling. Nordonia does a really great job of this. Only one change I would tell you is the reporting. It's really revisiting reporting to the court in a timely manner to make sure they get interventions earlier. So we're appreciative actually of the state pushing that forward. We think that's a smart thing from them. This is an annual resolution you pass every year that allows us to do payment for students that go to private school, that maybe it's one kid that goes to a private school, that instead of providing a bus, we pay a transportation. But Todd has done great research, and part of our strategic plan is finding other fund sources. This, he added one line in here that allows us to get reimbursement from the state. So now, when we submit those, we will submit them to the state, and the state, and cross our fingers, right, Todd, will submit about 50% Todd and Kyle have been working on this here for about 6 months, and this is the first step in the process, is getting a change to our contract that allows us to implement that.
Before the board moved on, a speaker highlighted a new agreement with local police that shaped how school resource officers supported Ledgeview and the high school. This was a glimpse into how the district worked with its cities on student safety behind the scenes.
So Todd did a great job of this, working with Macedonia to get our SROs. We have a great relationship with our cities, and part of that relationship is they provide SROs to our schools. You voted on a lot of these last month. This month is Macedonia, so Ledgeview and the high school, that's this memorandum of understanding. Todd's done a wonderful job with the police force, and we're very thankful to them for providing this for us.
Before the board took its vote, a speaker made the case for using online makeup days so snow days don't turn into lost summer plans. Listen in on how they weighed this option for families and the school calendar.
I'd ask for your approval for the annual resolution that the school district may utilize online makeup hours when appropriate to provide continuing instruction during school closures, which is permitted under Ohio school law. The district may use this plan for equivalent up to 3 school days each year. I think it's really our parents would appreciate that not going to school extra in the summer, and this gives the board an option to apply, if we have a lot of snow days, to apply up to 3, which would be an online day instead of snow day. Yeah, but I think if I'm a parent, I'm relieved that the school district's looking at every possible option that causes them to not have to cancel those summer plans because the school went late. I think if we didn't vote yes for this, and we ran into that problem, and we didn't do it because we didn't vote yes, they would be like, why didn't you take the option?
Right.
Before the board took a routine vote, a speaker made the case for stretching a modest pot of Title III dollars by joining a countywide consortium for English language learners. Hear how this move was pitched as a way to multiply $6,000 into much more support for students and staff.
I'd ask for your approval for the following memorandum of understanding with the Summit County ESC. We're going to join their Title III consortium for next school year. What this agreement does, it allows for our participation in the consortium for English language learners. What it really does is it provides some professional development that we can work with other districts to kind of decrease the funds and what that would cost by joining that consortium. So your approval will be voting yes on that. Not talking about a lot of money. There's only $6,000 out of the Title III funds, but we want to get as much out of that as possible. So by joining the consortium, we can multiply that by working with other districts and bring professional development into our district at a very reasonable price.
Every dollar counts.
A speaker asked the board to back a new math pathway consortium that built on work Nordonia had already pioneered. Listen in as they explained how teaming up with other districts could open different routes through high school math for students.
Ask for your approval for the following contract with the Summit Education Service Center for the AQR Math Pathway Year 1 Consortium training implemented for next school year. We saw there were other avenues for kids for Algebra 2 equivalency, and so we looked at other possibilities. Nordonia was one of the first ones in the state to do this, mathematical modeling and reasoning. Remember that, Todd, when we did that? And so what we did is other school districts joined the table of what Nordonia was doing for about 5 years, and we joined a consortium, again, to allow us to pool funding together, because in order to teach a class, you have to be trained, and then allow Nordonia to share that information with other districts to allow them to do an Algebra 1 equivalency. So that's what this consortium will do.
One speaker showed how shifting a long-standing behavioral support contract in-house could save the district money without cutting services, and raised a surprising wrinkle about special education when students use vouchers. Listen in to how these behind-the-scenes changes added up for both the budget and student support.
I want to do the same amount of service, but I want to do it at a cheaper rate. And you're going to vote on a district behavioral specialist. This is something that we outsourced in the past. So we worked with an agency to bring it in. We've had it for decades. Carrie looked at that contract and found out that we can actually save money by bringing it in and not outsourcing it with an external agency. Save about $20,000.
Oh,
right? So what I asked all my department heads is, we've done a really, really good job, and Kyle pointed out, saving money, but we're at the point where we want to take that extra step to find out what we do and save money by still doing what we do, but in a cheaper way. Kyle talked about this, but this is in action. That she's bringing it to the board, still the same person, the same service, save the district $20,000 by bringing it internal. If a student takes a voucher to go to a private school that works on IP, we're still responsible to write the IP. Let me repeat that. If a kid takes a voucher, a family takes a voucher to send their student outside of the school district, we're still responsible to write the IP. Heather Eckerroth does that, and we pay her to do that, because instead of hiring a staff member to do that, we pay a teacher a little extra to do that. But it is an interesting, unique thing.
In the middle of all the budget talk, the board paused to acknowledge a part-time staff member whose behind-the-scenes work quietly kept daily finances moving. Hear how they navigated losing this role while still offering a public thank you to Courtney.
We have a part-time job, that's a part-time position, and realistically, it's a position where she needs to find a full-time position. I met with her to have a conversation about what that might look like for us, and as much as we love Courtney, the district is not in a position, nor will be in a position where we'll ever make that full-time. It's just not that position. So we lost a great person. I do want to publicly thank Courtney because she's a wonderful person, but we are losing the full-time position, so that's Courtney.
Well, I wish her the very best.
Courtney does a lot for the finances, as in picking up pay-ins, picking up deposits, bringing to the office. We would not be able to do the day-to-day without Courtney. So it's thank you to Courtney for what she does. Mr. Lummer?
The board had just welcomed a new technology leader from the private sector and hinted that this hire might finally let an overworked staff member get some sleep. Listen in as they talked about why this move mattered for the whole department.
I tried talking him out of it, but in the end, you know what I said to him? I said, Steve, I'm really proud of you, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do. And you're actually right. You have learned everything you could learn here, and it's now time to learn more stuff because you are ready to take over a school district. I know.
I'm Stephen Polskamp, and I'm excited to begin, and just thank you for your time.
Steve, we're hiring you as a supervisor to figure out what that means so we can bring in maybe a more team approach to solve this and give you guys some more help, because Mike does not sleep at night as it is, and we want to give him an opportunity maybe to have some sleep. Part of his assignment, and now you will join in, is maybe rethinking that technology department to add a little sleep for Mike. So there you go. Yeah, first assignment.
I think that the fact that you emanate from the private sector is going to be a good fit, because there's lots that we do in government or public sectors that we can learn much more from what happens in the private sector. Security, for sure, things like that. And I've been in the government sector for a very long time, and I've also been in the private sector.
The board paused to spotlight a longtime football volunteer who stepped up for the middle school team. Listen in as they talked about why this new commitment to Nordonia scholars and community mattered so much.
Nordonia is blessed to have a lot of volunteers working for us, but it's really great. Jason has been a long part of our community football program, and I think he's ready to come on with Mr. Barwitty and join the middle school staff as a volunteer, giving up tons of time to coach middle school football. God bless you for doing that.
Thank you for your volunteer work. You have your hands in so many pots. You are so helpful in so many places.
Thank you for acknowledging. It's just really a great opportunity to be able to watch our scholars kind of develop. Been able to coach a lot of these kiddos since they were like in third or fourth grade. And so to see them now in middle school just seemed like a natural progression. So I'm just glad that I was able to carve out some time to make this additional commitment to our community.
Behind that short treasurer's report sat 180 pages of detailed financial statements and a public check register. Treasurer Kiffer explained how they boiled it all down for the board, without losing any of the transparency for anyone who wanted to dig in.
And then the financial statements, Mr. Tidmore mentioned before, the financial statements is about 180 pages. We're talking all the revenues, all the expenses for the year, the check register, I do a compliance check for the Treasurer's Estates Office. All of that is in the minutes, but it's also posted to the website. And when I first came in, the first thing Mr. Tidmore said, "Hello, Kyle, make this easier for the board." And it turned into 5 slides, and that's what I report out. But if anybody wanted to get into the details, it's all still.
Before the board named its delegates to a statewide school board meeting, a speaker broke down what that mysterious platform plank actually meant for local advocacy. Listen in as they connected this behind-the-scenes vote to what gets pushed in Columbus on education.
And so sometimes there's changes, things get taken away, things get added, and it's you go in there and you vote on all of these issues that come down through that what will either come out of or go into the plank. So that's what it is. And so you send a delegate, and you always have an alternate in case something happens and your delegate can't.
Platform, okay.
It's a platform. They call it the plank. It's your platform. It's your
Not walking the plank.
It's not walking the.
I was.
No, it's not. There's no pirates, I promise.
It's like I'm out.
It is the listing of all of the things like within education
Okay.
that they advocate for within education. And so that way they know, what things to try to work on with legislators in Columbus.
Approve the appointment of Liz McKinley to delegate and Sandra Camilla Miller to the alternate delegate of the 26th Annual OSBA Business Meeting.
Okay. Any questions? We're good? All right, Mr. Kiffer.
Ms. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Mr. Larmer?
Yes.
The local government services, it's the Auditor of State's office. So it's we have used them to compile our reports for probably 25 years. And the individual that comes in is like a part of the team, compiles the reports, and with myself, and then we get that, and then audit starts at the same time.
All right, Mr. Kiffer.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Larmer?
Yes.
That's it for this meeting's highlights. Lots of careful work on the district's finances, long-term planning, and a few key moves around safety, academics, and student support. The board will keep digging into things like the new cash balance policy, tech planning, and those finance videos in upcoming meetings, so check back in for future highlight reels to see how it all unfolds.
Thank you for watching CGov.